this on my. I'm Maggie Knapp. I'm the Director of Training for Rochester, New York, Rochester region. And I have invited Jason Lyle. Jason, raise your hand.
Hello.
From Gold Shield Pro, and Jim Wertenberg. Jim, raise your hand so they can
Hello.
find you. There you go. From Central Inspection. I asked these two in particular because they're both ASHI, and I'm gonna let them tell you what that means. Inspectors, they're very nice guys to work with, and they're wonderful with clients, and I'm gonna let them tell you about that. I've been using both of them for a long time. So if you're looking for inspectors in the Rochester area, I can highly recommend both these guys. So with that, Jason, you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll let Jim introduce himself, and then we'll start.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jason Lyle with Gold Shield Pro Services, home
Did I say
inspection.
it backwards? I do that
That's
all the
all
time.
right.
I'm sorry.
You're all right. I before E, except after C. So I've been doing this for probably it's 11, almost 12 years now, full time, and this is my main job. And I really enjoy working with everybody, people, especially young couples. Taking them through their first house is really exciting. And I serve pretty much, I won't go all the way to Buffalo and Syracuse, but I do travel well. So nice to meet everybody. Hope this is informational for you all. Jim?
Thank you, sir. Actually, Jason and I are kind of friends. We were just out for breakfast yesterday, so we get along very well, which is.
He paid, so I like him even more.
What's that?
I said you paid for it, so I like you even more.
I'm Jim Wertenberg. I own Central Real Estate Inspections. I also am a full-time inspector. I've been in the business for 15 years. I have a contracting background prior to that. I enjoy also working with clients, showing them around their house, and then also being available down the line to answer questions. I've had people call me 4 or 5 years after they've moved into their house with questions. So I'm always here for support. I cover a 9-county area. I am in Buffalo once in a while, but pretty much 9 counties, and which is around the Monroe County area. I do all types of, home inspections, mold assessments, radon testing, sewer scans, pest investigations, water analysis, all kinds of things. So if you ever have a question, you don't have to use me as an inspector. I'd be glad to answer your questions at any time.
Thank you. So you can see why I use both of them, I think, just even from that brief introduction. So tell me, Jim and or Jason, however you want to answer this, why do I want to have an American Society? What does that ASHI stand for? Home inspector. Why do I want that kind of an inspector?
American Society of Home Inspectors.
Thank you.
ASHI is supposed to be, it's the premier home inspection organization in the United States. We have to do, I believe it's an extra 22 hours of continuing ed per year on top of our 12 hours that we have to do right now per year. And that's just for home inspections. If we do any other services, such as radon or mold, things like that, that's all additional continuing ed. On average, home inspectors that belong to ASHI typically do about 30 hours continuing ed a year, which that's a lot of education for us to be able to help your clients in their home buying process, as far as not blowing things out of proportion. Sometimes you'll get a new inspector or somebody that just is not that well with communicating with people, and they'll make a mountain out of a molehill. So,
how many of you agents have worked with a home inspector who just was a deal breaker, just came in and blew deals up? Yeah, me too. There's one in particular in my area. Every single home, it seemed like, had a leak from the furnace and a problem with the panel box, and they were always the same things. And when I would get other people to come in and inspect them, we didn't have those problems. And he also did it on paper. So Jason, can you talk a little bit about the electronic reports, that, because you and Jim, your reports are very similar?
Yeah, the electronic reports are getting more advanced. throughout the years. So I actually upgraded to a new report style. It's a web-based report style, and most of the reports you see nowadays electronically are with pictures. They're line by line, room by room, or you can have a narrative, which is a summary of what was wrong with the house and what was right with the house. Pictures, videos are now starting to make their way into, if you haven't seen them already, into a lot of home inspection software. And it's right up front. All the summary recommendations and defective items are right up front for everyone to see. They're clearly spelled out. And I just think it's a little more, you're finding it just a little more intuitive, a little more easy to read for the, especially, the young kids that are on their phones and computers and everything all the time. You could just pop it in an email, or you can send it via web link. It's really, really easy.
For me as a realtor, it's so valuable to share with the other side when there's a problem, to have a picture, not just somebody's written communication. So if you're using an inspector that's still writing a report, I know of a couple, you need to look at one of these style of reports because it's completely different animal. Jim, can you tell us the difference between acceptable, marginal, and defective? And why do we have those categories?
Sure, there's acceptable is usually just, that it doesn't require any maintenance. I mean, we might have a note in regards to ongoing maintenance that you might want to have, but it doesn't require anything. It's basically moving condition, no issues. Actually, what were the old ones that you use? I use different ones.
Well, and then we can talk about that too. I use acceptable. The ones I've seen are acceptable, marginal, and defective. Okay. And what are your categories?
I have basically it's deferred maintenance or immediate attention. So, but that would be a defective immediate attention type thing. Is typically anything that's going to cost approximately 2% of the purchase price, or over $2,000 to have it repaired or replaced, or it might be a safety item or a structural issue that needs immediate attention. Usually it's a more expensive thing. The marginal or deferred maintenance is something that it might be a furnace that's nearing the end of its design life. We might have a furnace that might be 15, 20 years old, and you want to let them know, hey, this is, you're getting towards the end of the design life. And it's more, in my reports, it's more of a warning to make them aware of it, that it's something that they should plan for in the future.
So for my Howard Hanna agents, which is all of you, if you've got a end of life furnace and you're either Jason or Jim or whoever your inspector is has told you that it's sort of toward end of life, your HSA warranty is a great thing to offer them to go hand in hand with that, because now you're helping them to figure out how they're going to take care of those repairs. Jason, structural health and safety are some categories for home inspection. Which ones should we be concerned about as agents?
As far as structural health, it's really hard for an agent to walk through a house when they're showing it and see the structural problems. You can see normal stress cracks in drywall and around windows and doors. You can see those items. Those little tiny stress cracks, I wouldn't worry too much about. If you're walking through a house and you see large cracks, obviously that's something to be nervous about. Great things to look on the outside of the house when you're walking around with your client is to look at the foundation. If you see large size cracks in the foundation, especially vertical ones, it's probably a flag you want to write down. But as far as the structure goes, you can look at the roof, work your way down, just look for anything that's, if it's obvious, then it's probably a problem. Those are the things that, you guys should be looking for when you do show your house. And then, I mean, obviously we're in a different situation, but the inspection, we dive into the attic, we dive behind all the stuff that people have piled on their walls in the basement. Those are the things that we can even take it to for next level as far as structure goes. I have to be honest that I don't run into a lot of structural issues with a house. houses settle and they age and they crack. It's just the name of the game. Everything is repairable within, under several $100. So.
And Jim, do you have
Yes.
any comments about safety, health, and structural issues?
No, it is, I'll be honest, it is very rare that we find a major structural issue or something. I mean, and again, yes, just like Jason said, everything can be repaired. Your client and you have looked at many houses in this market. They've lost out on probably a few. And best thing is to, we're not lying to them, but we're showing them what you're dealing with and trying to explain it to them so that they can understand it and they're more at ease.
So
Jump in there. I think,
Go ahead.
especially with all the different kinds of loans out there, I think what's great about the home inspection and Jim does the same thing is we don't inspect for FHA. We don't inspect for USDA. I mean, we obviously have that in mind, but we do the inspection period. So if there's handrails missing, obviously we want to put handrails in there, even if it's a conventional loan or whatever. But we just do all safety aspects no matter what.
So handrails are for 4 stairs or more have to have a handrail, correct?
Correct. So you have handrails and GFCIs and all that good stuff.
All that good stuff. So when do you, as an agent walking around a house, when should they know to ask for a radon inspection or a chimney inspection, pest, mold, or other things? When should they be able to tell to ask for an inspection? At what point are you in your inspection saying, I found this and I think we need to get another level of expert in here?
As far as radon goes, I would encourage everybody to, ask around, because there are pockets of the town that the city of Rochester is very, very rare to have radon, high levels of radon, I should say. But getting out into the suburbs and it starts to change dramatically. So it's really, I always encourage it because you don't know. And it's all about your client. Your client has to be, a little proactive. If you just let them know that it could potentially be a problem where we're looking, Greece, Scottsville, Southern, Huntington Falls, Mendon, all those areas there, Webster. So it's pretty much covering a lot of towns. So
There is a New York State radon map too that you can
yes,
look at, and you can look at spots. Jim, is it true that near new builds, radon is more active? Where they've disrupted the ground?
Actually, a lot of the new builds, my opinion's a little different. I see the radon, just for people that don't know, we all say radon and everything. Radon causes lung cancer. It's the second leading cause of lung cancer in the US. It's attributed to approximately 22,000 deaths a year, just in the US. It is everywhere. It's in all the outside air. It's in every house and building. And the only way you can find out if it's at an unsafe level is by testing for it. Part of our business is being home inspectors. A lot of, you'll see in the reports, a lot of it is CYA, cover your cushy. So my opinion, for a real estate person, because you never know what blowback's going to be 5 years down the line or whatnot. If you told somebody that they don't need a radon test, and then when they go to sell it, the people purchasing the house have a radon test done and it's, very high. One of the things we always worry about as home inspectors is lawsuits. People are very sue happy. Personally, unless you're in a metropolitan area such as Buffalo, downtown Buffalo, Syracuse, or Rochester, I would recommend everybody have a radon test. They're typically about $150. It's a good peace of mind for both the client knowing what's going on and you as the realtor as far as covering your butt. It's not a big deal. It can be fixed. It's usually around $1,500 to fix a typical house. So that's my take on radon.
Yeah, thank you. So outlying areas are going to have a higher risk
Definitely.
than cities. So keep that in mind, and covering your butt is not a bad idea in real estate, because he's right. People are litigious. They like to come back and file lawsuits, and you can be the person who didn't recommend something. If you recommend a radon test to someone and they say no, get it in writing that they declined it, so that you are saying that I asked you, you know, if you wanted this and you declined. Get it in writing. Any recommendations that you make as realtors, get it in writing, and then if they decline it, they decline it. But just keep it with their paperwork. That's just a way for you to maintain your reputation over time, because people don't remember what they said oftentimes. The very first time I used Jason, we were going through an 1840 farmhouse, I think, and that poor house had a whole lot of problems. We had powder post beetles. We had ants, carpenter ants. It had a 1x1 holding up the roof. This house was a disaster. It had a literal 1x1 holding up the roof in the middle. Do you remember that house, Jason? In Lima. It was out in Lima. And it was, we did not pursue it after that. It just had problem after problem after problem. But even as we were going through those big problems, one of the things Jason did was said, you can fix all these things. These are the things you need to do, which is the kind of inspector you want. You don't want, I've once had an inspector say, I've said this twice, don't buy this house.
Yeah.
And it's very rare, right? Jim, have you said that very many times in your career?
With all these agents here, I've never said that.
If they
Yeah,
do, listen up.
It's typically, if I have said that, but, and it's typically, you'll have the single young female that has no support system in this area at all. And this is their first house and they have no idea. And it's just, and if the agent doesn't show up, which every time the agent wasn't there, she's just looking for somebody to help her. And it's, we'll go through and, find all these different issues, talk about it, ballpark pricing, what it might be to have a lot of this stuff taken care of. And then they'll ask you. And basically, if they ask me if I was your daughter and I was purchasing this house and they have nobody else to sound off, to, I'll say, you're either going to put in thousands and thousands of dollars or walk away and find something else.
And that's a great point, right? We have to look down the road for our clients and make sure that we're protecting them, make sure their pockets are deep enough. You might have a single female who's very handy, grew up side by side with her dad or her uncle or mom, fixing and repairing things. She might be a Dixie chick, fixie chick. Isn't that what they call themselves?
Yeah.
And be able to do all those things. So you need to know who your client is so that you can find out if they can take care of those problems themselves. What questions should a realtor ask, both of you, ask a home inspector when they're calling? So when I have a client calling up and saying, here's the people I recommend, what questions should those clients be asking you before they hire you?
I think the client should, definitely call. I'd rather talk to them. I want to talk to all the agents, but I'd rather talk to the client first. They should just do a little background check. I know that everybody has their favorite home inspector. I know it's absolutely true. So, if the client and the agent have a great relationship, then maybe it's, in a trusting relationship, maybe it can be okay. But I think the client should call, ask background. What can you do for me? What are all the things that you offer? I was just told to hire you for a home inspection, but what else do you do? And I can, you can take radon and pest inspection, mold assessment, all that good stuff. All those questions. How long is this going to take? What should I prepare for? Should I bring you money? What's, all the, the scheduling. How many, with the COVID thing now, you got to ask them, how do you feel about all these people in the house? Those are, and it's a 10-minute call. I know it's a lot of questions, but it's a 10-minute call, and we can, put them at ease and tell them what we're going to do exactly, and keep them calm, and say we're with them for the long haul. We're not leaving town. We're here for you. So I think if they call us, I think that's the best idea.
Jim, anything to add to that?
No, actually, that's, when we get the phone calls, the first question always comes out, which really, when you're looking at experience and what the inspector, first question is always, how much is it going to be? We're all in the same ballpark, and the only difference is basically what our experience is. If you're getting somebody that just got their license, just got out of school, they're going to be the lowball guy that's doing it for $200 or whatever. And you're also taking your chances with what their experience is and what they're, how they're going to deal with your client. Are they really going to serve your client? Now, everybody's got to start somewhere, but do you want to put your transaction, do you want to put your commission check on the line because this person's $50 cheaper than somebody else? Yeah, really should ask what their experience is, what types of things do they inspect, and what ancillary services they offer that, if they're buying a house that was built in the 40s and it has clay tile going up, they really might have a sewer, inspection done so that they're not having to put $15,000 new sewer pipe in. So.
Yeah, so keep in mind what other things, I always like to have at a minimum an inspector who can do a home inspection and a radon. Yeah, if possible, that they're also certified in New York State for mold or pest. Chimney's a big thing, different places. If you have somebody who's got a wood burning chimney and they want to use it and it hasn't been inspected by the homeowner for a couple of years, hasn't been cleaned, is that really a risk you want to take with your clients, that they're going to go in, start a fire and actually start a house fire because it wasn't inspected? It's a big deal. Is that something they can do after? Yeah, but if it needs a liner replacement, what do liners cost, guys? I'm thinking in the neighborhood of 10 to 15,000, depending on the size of the chimney.
Yeah, if you're doing
No,
wood,
not that much.
Not
Yeah,
that much. Okay.
yeah, the clay tile and all that repair would definitely be in the thousands, but
Not that high.
not that high.
Okay. Must have been my brother-in-law's. His was just special, I guess. I think that was the last one I heard about. His was really high. Anyway, what was I going to ask you? How long should an inspection take? I've been at some that were 90 minutes. I was at one that I thought I would die at. It was 6 hours long. I wish,
Oh my goodness.
How long should it take?
I believe my inspections, I will not be there longer than 2 hours. I don't want to be there longer than 2 hours. No one does. If the house is gigantic, that's a different story, obviously. Typically with a house that's 3,500 square feet or less, it shouldn't be more than 2 hours. Even if the home inspector has to go home and do extra work at home, that's fine. But I think you can find everything you possibly need. I know Jim does very, very large houses. So sometimes it takes several hours or more to do that, but he wears glasses, I don't. So I think 2 hours is a good number.
Jim?
And depends on chatting too. We like to talk too. So that could be a little bit longer.
Jim, is that what you would say too? A couple hours?
Yeah, usually usually it's an hour and a half to maybe 2.5 hours, depending on how chatty the buyer is and the size of the house. I would say a typical 2,000 square foot house, you're looking at right around 2 hours, maybe 2:15, depending on how much everybody's talking.
Great. I have a couple questions in the chat that I've been waiting to get to. One is, do you guys have a sample of an inspection report on either of your websites?
I do not have it on my website. If somebody wanted to ask, I'd be glad to.
And I have samples of both their, I can't give them to you.
Copy. I also don't develop this stuff, so but if ask me, square footage of something, then I'd be glad to help them.
Yeah, I don't have one on my website either. Mine's a web-based. It's a web-based inspection report, so it's really not. You can't play with it. If they wanted a copy, I could send a report out to them. It would be perfectly acceptable.
They're long too. They're big files.
Yeah, they're
Because
big
they've
files.
got, they have an initial page, and then they have each individual point that they cover, and then there's a summary page, which really is nice. I start with the summary and I go backwards, and myself, and all the pictures, so that for our new agents, if you don't know this, you only share the page or the item that you're talking about. You don't share the entire report. That whoever paid for it owns that report. So speaking of whoever paid for it, what about pre-inspections? So we're in a seller's market. There's some deals falling through, at least in the Rochester region, because of inspection issues. They're not having them. And as the deals are going down along the line, there's been some fall through. So what about a pre-inspection for a seller? What's the upside? What are the benefits of that? What are the downsides?
Jim, you want to go first?
Sure. I'd recommend a pre-inspection if somebody has lived in the house for more than 10 years. This way, by having a pre-inspection, the inspector is going to find issues that this person can either maybe fix themselves or have a relative or somebody fix it. Actually going to save them money. If they pass on that and a home inspector comes in and finds issues, typically it's written that it has to be like a licensed electrician or a licensed person or something like that, which is going to drive the cost way up for this repair that they may have been able to handle themselves. So for the couple $100, basically almost the same price as a regular home inspection. But they'll have all that information and they can make all those corrections. Some people will also, it really depends on, again, like Maggie said, whoever is the client, they're the ones paying for the home inspection. It's their home inspection. If they wanted to then share that with somebody, a prospective buyer for their property, and say, these were the issues and here that's all fixed and, the house is all good, they might be lucky and the buyer would waive having their inspection and move their process along. And it's a lot easier for them to get a better dollar for their house as well.
How many have ever done a pre-inspection with their listing? Yeah, I've done them and they're great. It solves a lot of problem. The downside is they have to disclose if they found a major problem, right? They either have to fix it. They got to disclose that they found it.
Correct.
You can't just hide a problem. So even if
if they disclose that, the fireplace chimney has a crack in it, it'd be really difficult for somebody to ask them to now put in that $3,200 chimney liner because they've already disclosed that the issue is there. So
So what's the what are the most common things that you find, and what's the difference between a deal breaker and, what's that line for an agent helping their clients?
The parents.
Parents, yes. Uncle Joe. Uncle Joe.
When the helicopter parents are there, the deal will fall apart.
Yes. I think I don't think any deal should fall apart really unless the house is just a crumbling mess. Everything can be fixed, but it's all, I find it's really about the client's level of, what are they willing to do? Are they computer guys, or are they, they're going to get down on their knees and take care of business with the house? That's what I find is it really has to do with the clients. Having a really, really old roof that's not going to be repaired, expensive things that are going to be, costly or going to have to be taken care of sooner than later, like a 30-year-old furnace or a 35-year-old roof, every single wood window, especially casement windows, those things add up. And I think when you guys walk through the house, you probably should see those and point them out, because, $225 per window, 20 windows down the road, that adds up pretty quick. As far as like the kitchen paint color and the vinyl flooring and that, I wouldn't worry about stuff like that. Move past that.
So when you have a buyer walking around with you and you have an agent walking around with you, what kinds of questions are buyers typically asking, and what should be the agent's role while walking around with you? So it's two sort of different questions.
Actually, I just want to go back to the last one.
Sure.
One of the things that would really help keep your transaction together is managing your buyer's expectations. Okay, now you folks have already showed them the house, you've put in your offer. So when you're in there and you're doing the home inspection, all of a sudden, because the carpet is stretched out, should not be an issue with them. They've already put their price in, they've made their price on what they're, what they looked at. So if we're finding stupid little stuff around the house, it should not scare them. Their expectations have to be managed. So, but when we're walking through the house, I personally like to do my inspection part and let them look around and do measuring and maybe show the house to other, well, it's kind of hard in COVID, but I always, prior to COVID and once it all gets passed, I ask them to have relatives and anybody else they want to show their house to come. It occupies the buyer so I can do my job. And then I catch up with them about every 20 minutes or so and let them know, what I've found, and we'll discuss a couple of things. And I ask everybody that's at the house if they have any questions. Everybody is included. It helps put everybody at ease. And then the helicopter parents are a lot more comfortable that I'm not there trying to shove this house down their throat because I'm working for the seller and the real estate agent. And there's a lot of misconceptions. So, but really managing expectations.
Yeah, in every level of real estate. Jason, what should the agents be doing? What's their role in the inspection?
At the inspection, the agent shouldn't be doing anything, I think. I think it's time for the client and myself to walk around. If they want to walk around with me, I encourage it. I will talk their ear off, but every aspect of their house, agent should be, sitting down, taking care of some other business. And that goes especially for the selling agent as well. Everybody should just leave us alone. Let us do our thing for sure.
So do you spend any time with homeowners showing them where the shutoffs are and what things that they should maintain going forward?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I will try to get there a little early and do the outside first. And then I will walk everybody around, show them, if you got wood siding, we're going to talk about wood siding and the complications of that, the roof, the gutters, all that good stuff. Talk about water valves and windows and frames. I mean, it's really everything that they need to know about running a house. So, and if they're veterans, sometimes they don't want to hear me and they'll just go inside and hang out. But, first time home buyers, especially, they like to listen to Jim and I talk their ear off.
So what things outside of the house, Jim, are you pointing out to them?
The type of siding, if it has a masonite type siding and the issues with that type of siding once it gets damaged. How the gutters are draining away from the house. I also explained to them, it's kind of like an investigation. I mean, when we're just walking up to the house, we have no idea what we're working with. So I might see something outside that I may think is a concern, but when I get down into the basement, the water isn't coming in, or the water is coming in, but now I already know why, because I saw the way the gutters were draining outside. That's how I kind of try to manage their expectation. This is an investigation. It's not a pass and fail. We're going to see what we're working with, and I'll let you know what we find. We're going to discuss everything before we leave. And just like Jason, I mean, we'll show them where, this is your main shutoff for the whole house, and this is how you change your furnace filter. And I always recommend to have your furnace and air conditioner both serviced at the same time in May. That way your air conditioner will run. I mean, it's all that type of stuff. I also explained to them the report isn't just going to be all negatives about the house. It's almost going to be like an owner's manual for the house to help you maintain it, take care of it, and show how things work.
Great. I was going to ask you, let's see. Oh, I had a thought, left me. Oh, so if I walk up, you walk up to the house and you see that the shingles, there's a little separation, little mold on top of the roof. Once you get inside, what are you looking for?
So as far as the roof goes, we're going to look at the exterior wall. If you're inside, you're looking at the exterior walls of the house on the second floor or on the first floor of a ranch. Look in the corners. I sometimes tap on the walls to make sure that it's not hollow or it's not paper thin. Then the attic, we'll get inside the attic and we'll look at the plumbing vents. So it's really hard for a roof to leak because the shingles are, covering it up. They really have to be damaged, but plumbing vents coming out of the roof, anything coming out of the roof, dormers, plumbing vents, chimneys. We're going to look at gutters when we're outside, and then we'll look on the inside at the soffits. Those are the items. So if you see, I've seen thousands of houses that have the shingles lifting up or flapped over, or they're popped up a little bit, and there's really nothing going on inside. It's just usually a settlement fix, or there's tar missing on the shingle that it really can, or a nail popped up can be fixed pretty easily. But the water, wherever there's a penetration in the roof, those are the spots.
So Jim, if you pop your head up into a crawl space and you're looking and you're seeing something looks sort of spider webby, but it's a little thicker and a little moister and it's growing, what happens then? What are we looking into?
Well, I always try to get up in there. For the house I did yesterday, the flashing all around the chimney was shot. So in the attic, right next to where the fireplace chimney was going through, all of the wood underlayment was wet. Some of it was rotted. So, I mean, that's an issue. I want to see if we have any type of mold or anything going, if it's going to need any type of mold remediation. I personally worry more about mold in the basement area, especially if you are showing a flip. If you're showing any type of flip or any house that may have been vacant for a duration, maybe a year or two, everybody is always worried about the attic. Go down in the basement and look up at the ceiling, and 9 times out of 10, that ceiling is going to be green, and that's the mold you need to worry about. Because somewhere along the line, the electric was shut off, the water couldn't drain out of the house from the sub pump or something, water built up in the basement with the summer heat building on it, and that condensation, that's where the mold is growing. That's the air that you're breathing. So a lot of people worry about in the attic, and yeah, if we have a significant issue in the attic, you'd want to have it treated because that will slow any deterioration of the wood underlayment for the roof.
So I'm going to share a picture. So if you came into a basement, talking of basements, and you saw this,
Mm-hmm.
what would you be looking for? What would you be advising your client?
The outside downspouts are going into a drain that is plugged. And they're overflowing. The gutters are not draining away from the house the way they're supposed to.
And that's probably a pretty simple fix, right?
Absolutely.
So that looks like it could be a major problem, but it's a pretty simple fix.
Correct.
So you have a couple other questions here too. One is radon for just the basement and living area, or living in non-living space, somebody asked. So
with
radon is for
radon
the whole
testing,
house, right?
the radon testing, we always test in the lowest area of the house that can be used for living or recreation. So typically, if you're doing a house that was built in like 1840, it might have a dirt basement, stone foundation, you can barely stand up. House like that, you test on the main floor of the house, like a dining room or something. You never test in a kitchen or bathroom. But yeah, the radon testing is always done in the lowest spot. The reason is a house works in what's called the stack effect, where the air comes in, even though you don't feel it going past you, but filtrating in through the foundation, through any cracks in the walls or the floor. And that's where the radon gases are coming in, and then they're going up through the house. So your highest concentration is always going to be in the basement area or the lowest living area. And this also goes for if the house is on a slab. same type of thing. You're going to want to test in the living space, even though it's on a slab, it still has air filtrating up through the foundation.
Did that answer your question, Chris?
Yes.
Thanks. And we have another question. Are questions from the agent after the inspection okay? At what point are they not okay? And once the inspection report comes out and through the inspection, resolution seems natural, but what about, let me see here. Where are you? But what about after the closing, a problem arrives? These may not be items found on the inspection. Is the inspector still a good resource for questions and advisement?
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes,
I look forward to that.
yeah,
I like being there. That's part of the enjoyment of doing this, is being there to help them all while they own the house, helping them with their experience of owning the house and being able to answer questions for them.
And to be quite honest, this is one of the reasons why I continued after I met them to work with Jim and Jason, because they made this really clear, crystal clear to the clients, that just because we're done with the inspection doesn't mean I'm done answering questions. You got questions, pick up the phone, call me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, and they do. So that's why I continued to work with them. They didn't alarm people. They did a good, clean inspection, and then they were available after the fact. And I've called them up and said, can you walk me through this report, because I don't understand this thing or that thing. And they've been very patient with me as a realtor, figuring things out, because every home is different. Every home is unique. So that's pretty much all of my questions. What other questions do you guys have for these two? Because you don't often get inspectors like this, so you can ask questions. Come on, they're here.
I have a
Yes,
question,
Jens.
Maggie.
Yep.
Jim or Jason, thank you for coming, first of all. Do you have any specific measuring tools for like wet areas, or let's say mold behind the walls, or is there any specific measuring tools you bring to the jobs, to the inspection, and say, okay, we have to look behind the wall a little bit here, or find some problems if you smell something or something, or you just basically write it down and that's it?
No, I do. I have moisture meters. I do have a scope that can go into a wall, but that is beyond our standards of practice. It's not every home. We don't have to do that as far as our licensing law. But I want to be thorough. So.
yeah. I won't use a specialty tool. So we're not allowed to tear walls down, look behind walls, or do any of that stuff. But if you have a specialty tool that you're trained in and certified in, you can pull that out at your, if you want to. It's not required, but if you want to, we'll always, even if we do that, we're still going to recommend that you hire someone in that specialty field, be it mold assessor or a pest exterminator, things like that. We'll ask you to hire them anyways, because that's what their specialty is.
One other question. What was the scariest thing you found in a crawl space?
I have a thing for when I go into basements in the city. We do a lot of investment properties. I've seen people down there. That obviously scares the crap out of me, but I don't like couches that are in dark, damp basements. They just freak me out for some reason. There's so much bacteria and gross stuff on that couch that's sitting in a dark basement. It just creeps me out. But I've seen lots of animals and bat droppings and a lot of that stuff, but that doesn't scare me too much.
How about a bag of cash?
Yeah, no, I was never there.
Well, only one time in 15 years I came across money in a basement. And left it there because I didn't know if it was a setup.
Good idea. Good idea. You know what I should have asked you is, how does a home seller prepare for an inspection? What can they do?
It's out of the way so we can get into. We need to be able to get into the attic crawl space, a basement crawl space if there is one. We need to open up the furnace and check that out. We need to take the cover off the electrical panel. And there's many times that I'll have to unload the majority of a closet to be able to get into the attic crawl space. Or, you know, I know that people are trying to sell their house to get something larger, but they'll have so much stuff in the basement, you can't get to the furnace or the electric panels. So that slows us down. And sometimes you might get a little ticked and things get looked at a little bit more closely. So, but no, that's.
So as a listing agent, yeah, you're responsible for educating your seller on the preparation, which is to make sure that the space around the water heater and the furnace is clear, preferably that the furnace has been cleaned and inspected with a receipt right on it so they can see it, that's recently done. That crawl space is available, open, so that they can get to it. They can put the clothes back when they're done, or better yet, tell them, listen, you're moving anyway, pack it all up and put it away. But it's your job to make sure things are clear and there's a pathway to everywhere. It's not going to work in every house, but you can try to set that expectation.
I got just 2 quick questions.
Sure, Paul.
First one, would we be able to get your guys' contact info?
No.
Just for, I don't know,
Yes, of
picture
course.
references, all that.
Jason,
I don't think Jim's doing
the phone number
inspection.
on Jason's thing was my ID. I forgot to do it on mine.
Well, it's all right. You can put in the
okay,
chat.
yeah.
You guys can type in your email and your phone numbers with your name, and then they can
Okay.
just write it down from there. So they'll have that.
Sure.
Perfect.
If
And then,
someone suspects they have bats in the attic, Kathy, I have bats in my attic, this one. Should they have it checked out prior to an inspection?
Absolutely.
Also bees, also any
Raccoon.
kind of noises in the wall. I don't know
Yeah.
if you can hear my fingernails on my keyboard.
Yeah, I mean, in the attic, you want to make sure that there aren't any bird's nest or any droppings from bats or anything. I mean, we'll go into an attic and have a pile that might be 1.5 feet high from the bats. So you want to make sure that that's all cleaned up and gone.
Paper wasps are knocked down by a professional and removed. I have seen a honey bee infestation in walls, and that's a nightmare. That's an absolute nightmare. Honey dripping down in between, and you can't see it till when you get to it, you finally have to, it's
Yeah.
a horrible mess.
I've
I
seen
do-
that in grills too. Outdoor grills. Honeybees love that under the covers.
There's some, when they move in with
Yeah.
all their friends. Paul, did you have another question?
yeah, I did just a question. I saw it in one home that the attic, when they had the ladder you pull down, and then I think it was all like blown in, like right above there. And I didn't go poking around. I don't know if you were able to get in or not above that. Like, have you guys seen that? And like, what do you do if there is an attic that's kind of blown in like that?
Drop cloth. So we'll have, I'll kind of put my ladder up for an attic and I'll kind of poke at the hatch
Mhm.
that you're talking about. And if insulation starts to fall out, is that what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, I guess when they actually opened the hatch, it was like looked like it was completely blown in with insulation.
Yeah, that's good. You want a lot of insulation, but if I want to look in there, I'll kind of give it a little poke. And if the cellulose, that brown, really fine insulation comes crashing down, that's a different story. I mean, that stuff will make a humongous mess, but the white fluffy stuff, you can kind of clean up. But drop cloths, we carry drop cloths and we put them under the ladder and on the clothes and the closets and stuff like that.
Oh, so you guys would pretty much, I guess what I was asking is like, if you couldn't see the attic, you pretty much go through it until you could see the attic.
Yeah, we'll try to get in there at all cost.
Okay.
Right, at least, or even, worst case scenario, you get the hatch open a little bit, have your camera on a selfie stick or whatnot, and shove it up in there and then rotate it around, take some pictures.
Okay.
But usually if it's that full, they put the insulation in from somewhere. There might be an access to the attic out in the garage or somewhere else in the house. It's kind of hard to blow this stuff right. And I know what you're talking about because there's many times I've lifted up a hatch and you have a ton of it fall on you. But that's usually they put it in from some other location. There might be a hatch or an opening somewhere else.
Okay.
But if it does have, say we can open it up and I see that it's all blown in cellulose, I'm not walking around in there because you can't,
Yeah, you can't walk.
the floor, you can't see where anything is. But I will do the best I can to take as many pictures as possible.
Okay.
So a home inspector isn't going to be able to see or uncover every problem. So I have heard of realtors getting really upset because a home inspector didn't see everything. You can't see everything, and that never was their job. Jim said it. They're there to investigate, and they do as thorough a job. How many points on your inspection reports? They're huge.
Oh
How
my
many
God.
things are you looking at? Do you even know? Do you know the number?
15 or 1,800 items.
It's huge. And even at that, things can be missed. So it's your job to put your eyes on your house every time you're walking through that property. If you see something you think might be a problem, it's your job to let the inspector know before they ever get there, so that they can look at it more carefully or say to you, well, that's nice, Maggie, but that's really not an issue, which that'll happen too. What happens when you're outside? Let's say the grade is really poor, there's no gutters, but down in the basement, they've got that plastic sheeting. You can't see the walls. What are you looking for then? What if you can't see the walls or the floor? Maybe it's been finished and you can't see what's back there. What do you do?
There's from experience, you find different types of clues. You can see if the floor molding is starting to bubble a little bit, if any of the painted surfaces on the drywall has some discoloration. There's clues that we can look for to try to see if there's any moisture coming into the property. So,
And also don't forget to use your nose.
right, exactly.
You
Yep.
can smell a lot of moisture problems.
If there's any area that we can see behind the wall and try to use that as a guide, because even if we can get the littlest view behind or the bottom floor and see if like the wood that is on, holding the wall up, if it's all damp, then we know that we have moisture getting in there.
Right. Johan, you had asked a question about pre-inspection for buyers. I'm not really sure what you're asking, because when buyers have an inspection, it comes after the purchase offer's been accepted.
Yeah, you would think, except I had one this week that we had competing offers and they had their inspection done even before putting in their offer. So
I did one today.
Sorry?
I did one today. That's what I did.
Yeah, I'm wondering how frequent that is happening these days. My guess is that's a little bit of a new trend. Is that true?
Oh, you mean the inspector going with a buyer before they put the offer in?
Before
Oh,
they
yeah,
put the offer.
you can do that. Go ahead, Jason. Tell them about that.
I did one today. The listing agent allowed the prospective buyer, because they were a strong buyer, I guess, that's what they were telling me, the option of having a home inspection prior to putting in their offer. That's what I did today. That was my first time ever, to be honest with you.
And that's a really good solution in a seller's market for your buyers. They still got to pay for their time. But they can go around. It's not the same inspection though, right? It's not as
No.
complete.
No, I did a full inspection. It was,
They let you do a full inspection.
that's why I thought it was weird. Yeah, it was a full inspection.
Wow.
And I found discoloration in the attic and problems with the chimney and all that good stuff. I don't know what their negotiation process would be, because they haven't put an offer in yet. So I guess that helps them.
So
There is a process that's going around right now because of this market, and is walk and talks, where you might find an inspector and he might have a certain fee. There's typically never a written report because that's where the liability comes in. But we might go to the house when they're viewing the house, the buyer is viewing the house with their agent, and we just walk along with them. And they're always looking at the paint and flooring and how nice it is. And we're letting them know, I mean, this furnace is 25 years old. Your hot water heater is 20 years old. It has a Federal Pacific stab lock panel. You have a lot of upgrades you're going to have to do. So keep that.
Yeah.
For new age, Pacific stab lock that's got to be replaced. It's illegal.
Yeah.
I have a couple more questions here in the chat. What should a homeowner do if you find something in the inspection? This isn't really a question for them, but I'll answer it for you real quick, Justin. And they need an immediate replacement, but they can't afford to replace, that's a point of negotiation. They may have to drop the price. They may have to give a credit at closing. So that's a conversation for negotiation after the fact. That's it's going to come back on this. If they can't do the repair, it's going to come out of their pocket financially in one way or another. How can you evaluate the exterior condition of a roof if it's covered with snow, guys? Can't.
You can't.
I bring a snow blower and cleaning it. You
Yeah.
can't. You really
On those
can't.
Victorian roofs, I'd like to see you do that, Jim.
Yeah, you really can't. I mean, sometimes if we can get the age of the roof, if it's only like 5 years old and there's no issues in the attic and there's nothing going on, usually the buyer's good with that. But if it's an older roof, I will, if it's within reason, I'll offer to, drive by it in a couple of weeks or whatnot and take a look at it when the snow is melted. But
So they can look in the interior for where the problems may be inside, but they can't see the outside. So as
yeah,
a listing agent, really try to get a picture of the roof without the snow on it. Try to get some close-ups that you can show the inspector, because that may come up if you're selling in the winter season. You're listing a house right now, try to get one on a day where there's no snow. Another thing, if you're the buyer's agent, look and see if that house was listed in the last 10 years and is in the MLS. Look and see what the roof was and read the PCDs from those previous listings. That can tell you a lot. So it might say age of roof unknown, where the one before it was known. They'll tell you the age, and they just may want to say they don't know, but they do know. So prior listings can give you an awful lot of information. Any last questions? We're coming up on 2 o'clock, and I like to keep our on time, especially these guys, I'm sure have work to do. Ken, did you have a question?
Yeah, this is in reference to black mold. Is there, there's a couple of times where I went to a showing, and the client saw a little spot of black mold, got paranoid, and instantly right away, no, I don't want this. This is going to cost me a lot of money. Any advice on what you could say in that?
yeah. Ken, I'll be honest with you. First thing I would do is lose the term black mold. Black mold is actually greenish and white. The reason they call it black is because of how it affects your lungs. When you see black, usually in a basement, you'll see this black walls or whatnot. That's on a concrete surface. There's actually thousands of molds and mildews, but on a concrete surface, you do not have, it's not a mold that's growing, that's going to do anything to anybody. That can be cleaned up with some bleach and water. It's not deteriorating any surface. And that's where a lot of people, we walked into this basement, it was just loaded with black mold. It's not black mold. So it's just, that's what a lot of people don't understand. Black mold is actually, it's the effect it has on your lungs, and it's a greenish white fluffy type of thing.
And you'll feel it when you go in
Yeah,
the
that's
room.
efflorescence, right? You're talking about, Jim?
Efflorescence is more of a white.
White and foamy.
That comes from the amount of salt content that's in the cement when they made the blocks. That also can be cleaned up very easily.
Wire brush, a little
Yep.
vinegar, bleach.
Yep. But the best thing, again, is managing expectations. Try to put them at ease that, no, this is not black mold, it's black. It is a type of a mold or a mildew, but it can be cleaned up very easily. It's not a reason to walk away from a house.
And as realtors, may I caution you, you are not to use the word mold. You don't know what it is. You're not certified. Unless somebody is certified, they shouldn't be calling it anything. And there is remediation. There are companies that remediate it, and it's not horrible. Though it can be if you actually have mold that needs to be remediated, it can be done without a tremendously high expense. Jason, did you have something to say about mold?
No, exactly what Jim said. Yeah, if you walk into a house and you can't breathe, then that's black mold.
Now, if you're going into a HUD house and there's a warning that says enter at your own risk,
Yeah,
that's probably mold.
that's a
And you really
giveaway.
should not be going in without a really good, not a COVID-19 cloth mask, but a really good mask, because it is dangerous.
Correct.
Yeah, and they've usually already investigated that. Any other questions?
A walk and talk usually is a much lower price. because all you're doing is really paying and, you know, whatever the inspector charges for like an hourly rate or a half an hour rate.
Yeah, so that's a great option during a seller's market. It'll help your buyers have some level of comfort be going in. Just again, Jim, I think you said this perfectly, manage their expectations. Should be doing that from the first time you meet them on everything. But certainly with regard to home inspection, if you guys aren't getting home inspections now during a seller's market, I think you're doing your clients a disservice. I really strongly do. And it's really hard. Because so don't be the listing agent that's a jerk about letting people have a home inspection on the biggest investment of their lifetime. They're really important. They give people peace of mind. If you can't get it, at least get them the HSA warranty to help them cover some of the appliances and things. Because one of the things we didn't talk about is they go on and they turn on all the tubs, they turn on all the sinks, they turn on any appliances that come with the house and see that everything works. So that's also part of the inspection. There's lots of, like you said, how many 1,500 pieces did you say to the inspection? They're huge.
Yes, yes.
It's huge. So did everybody get their contact information? I personally can recommend both of them. That's not me from the company. That's me, Maggie. I have used them both and I like them both and they're terrific and my clients like them. Are really happy with their work. That's why I asked them to be here because I think that they speak well of their profession. You're both are board members too, right? On the local inspectors, or are you not now?
Yeah, I'm president and Jason's the treasurer.
Yeah. So.
And that's another thing. It's we have a local home inspectors association, and that might be something else you would want to ask a home inspector you're working with, because we meet on a monthly basis year round and we exchange, we all talk about things we find. We do not there is absolutely no discussion ever in regards to relations with realtors or anything. So none of that is allowed. But we do talk about different things we find. What did we do about it? And we have constant continuing ed. It's really going to be the best educated inspectors in the area are the guys that belong to this group.
I have one more question.
Yes.
How about the pools? Now you see more and more in-ground pools and stuff. Are you doing all inspection of pools too?
I do not do in-ground because of so much of the piping is underground. I have no way to inspect that. I leave that up to the people that install pools, because they're the ones that actually know all the functionality of it and everything. Above ground, no problem. I can see everything to do with that, but not in-ground.
So you sub it out or you get an expert coming in to look at it, or how's it work?
No, I actually let the people find it themselves. I don't do any subcontracting or anything. So I just tell them, I'm sorry, I don't do that because of the amount of liability. I'll give them the names of 3 or 4 different places. It is difficult to find somebody to do in-ground pool inspections, especially during the summer months. So, because they're busy putting pools in. And
there's not a lot of them. There's not a lot of places that do it. So a lot of times with an inspection, if an inspector has something that you didn't ask for that they think might need to be looked at, they'll recommend that if they don't do that inspection themselves. And that's you will have to write an addendum and get that, ask the seller if they're willing to let you come back and do that chimney inspection, that pest inspection, that whatever that additional thing is. Your inspector may or may not do that. If they don't, they may recommend someone. If they do that, then you would talk to them about the price. It would be a separate event. You can't go in and do an inspection, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, that you weren't hired for on that day. Correct?
I mean, yeah.
I don't understand what you mean.
We only do inspections for if we were hired for mold assessment for.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pool inspection. So if they say, "Oh, can you now go around and do a pest inspection like that?" I think it would have to be agreed upon by everybody there, including the buyer.
Yeah, the buyer and the seller have to agree. You have to come back after the fact and do that as a subsequent event. So the inspections that you asked for up front, which is why you need to have looked at the house, and pay attention, learn from your inspectors. I've learned so much from home inspectors on what to look for so that I know what to ask for on each additional house. As the more houses you go to, the more you learn what to ask for. Because you'll, like, I now know what the sign of a powder post beetle is. I didn't know, but now I do. So, you know, I would know to ask for that going forward.
Maggie, I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
If a buyer is, if you're putting an offer in on a house that has a wood burning fireplace and the buyer intends on using it as a wood burning fireplace, can you write your offer that you might be asking for a home inspection, but you also want to have the fireplace cleaned and inspected, that they do it, that the seller does it?
Yes, you can.
They do the furnace cleaning.
Yeah.
Has to have that done in your purchase offer?
Yeah, you can have that in your purchase offer.
Okay.
Yep. And I have done those. How many of you have asked for a chimney cleaning and inspection paid for by the seller? How many of you? I have always asked for a furnace to be cleaned and inspected unless it's already been done. As a listing agent, I always have my listing people, my sellers, clean and inspect their furnace before we even get it on the market. So that day one is ready to go.
Just curious, because it's one less thing you have to go back to negotiate over.
And if you have a wood burning fireplace that is being used, it would behoove you to tell your sellers, have it cleaned and inspected before we list it. It's a safety feature. You know, how would you feel if something was wrong with the fireplace and somebody moved in, and the night they moved in, they had a fire and catastrophe happened? Could you live with yourself? I couldn't as a seller. So I asked them, and I put it like that. How would you feel if somebody moved in and something happened because we didn't have this inspected? It's a couple $100. If it's a problem, then you say, we had to clean it and inspect it, and we're not going to replace it, but it needs a new liner. But we got an estimate, and here's what it's going to cost for you to take care of it. And you price it for that problem. That's how I would do it. So yes, Jim, you can put that in the purchase offer. Any other questions from anybody? All right, thanks for coming, everybody. And Jim and Jason, thank you so much. I so appreciate you.